Good morning or good noon. Now it's my time to give you some inspiration, I hope, for how it could look like once we take all these technical enablers we just saw, presented by Anders, and put them into play. I have a short agenda I'll share in just a second, but the presentation will be roughly some 20% of me setting the scene with a few slides, and then everything else from there is live. So to begin with, I'm going to set the scene for the context that I live in. My context is project portfolio management and has been for many, many years. There are many different processes today that has to do with project management. We just saw an app being done by Anders, which was also project related. So project means we do temporary work, but then we repeat the processes over and over and over. So there's a lot of benefits for injecting AI into that process. And I guess that's why I'm here as well. So I've been a heavy fan of Copilot Studio, also before it was called that, virtual agents back in the days before AI. So I'm going to show examples on how we can use Copilot Studio more from a platform perspective rather than just a chatbot. And I'm going to show that through some live demos later on. So my background is, again, project management. The last couple of years has been entirely focused on AI and what I call xPM, which is anything portfolio management. And on that note, this is my very simplified one-pager on the world that I work in, which I guess also goes for many of you. In the old days, 5-10 years ago, I would say there were plenty of customers that I work with where to be a project manager was something very few could say they were by title. And today, more or less everyone you run into is doing a project. Large project, a billable project, an internal project, tons of projects. And if it's not projects, then it's epics or features or stories or PBIs and all these things. So everyone is working on something. And management wants to know what's going on. So this page sort of explains the complexities in my world where I have relied on AI a lot. But if you look at the left side here, at the bottom here, you have your, let's say, initiatives, your business cases. So project business case, a new idea for something, a portfolio epic if you're running scaled agile. This is then aggregated into programs, roadmaps, multiple portfolios or business units, and all the way up to the boardrooms sometimes. So essentially, we are managing the CapEx part of the business and, of course, also keeping an eye on the OPEX. To do that, there are tons of processes that are relevant for every employee, I think, especially if you are an information worker, and not just for project management, but strategy management, product management, resource management, especially this one. There's a 90% chance line managers in your companies are doing this in Excel. That's a fact. Even though that's where all your capacity is right now. It's probably not a money problem, it's a capacity problem, and yet we are managing capacity in spreadsheets and everything else in great systems. So just saying that while I have the chance. Besides that, we have change management, risk management, yada, yada, yada. And down here is where many customers come to us or Microsoft and say, do you have an app that can do demand management, change management, a Gantt chart, project management, which is not a Gantt chart. Project management is tons of more stuff than a Gantt chart. And it's also here where we sometimes I ask, or I am as well, what can you do with AI? People sometimes see it as a button you click and then magic happens, you have AI, because that's your experience from at home where you try ChatGPT to create a song or a story or something like that. So in our world, we see AI as something that spans the entire business and all the processes that are in the company. You can, of course, invest in something that just works out of the box. That would probably be a Copilot or M365 Copilot experience. Install, or not even install, that's an old word, I know. Deploy, use, and it knows who you are and your calendar and all that stuff, which is great. For the other processes, probably you need to do a little bit of work before it just works. But luckily, we can do that. And if you notice up here, we have Copilot Studio that you just saw before, and our, at least, ways of, sorry, that was too fast. Here we go. Ways of categorizing the different use cases. And the use cases I'll get back to because I'll show them live. Like everyone else, there's a tons of articles and research materials that are available out there for how will this impact us? Can we do an ROI, right? So of course you can do a company ROI from investing in AI in project management. I prefer to do what I think Microsoft also tries to do the ROI on the role level, or maybe even on the individual level. Because it really differs how much we can benefit from AI. And if I can save 5 hours per day, or 1 hour or 10 minutes, then maybe it's fine that I get all the AI that I need, no matter the cost. If an autonomous agent can replace 5 full-time equivalent workers, then of course that's a business case also. But the business case is sometimes a bit tricky to do on the company level, so it's easier to just go one step down and do it down there. So my sometimes challenge is, where do people work when it comes to project management? Do we have a project management department? No, we don't, because we do projects everywhere. So suddenly it's a company-wide initiative, perhaps. So back to the use cases, we call it automation draft decisions. People have their own ways of categorizing them. The most important part is that you just don't call them AI use cases, because typically then you don't get anywhere. The automation part is, as an example, the whole recap that Copilot does in Teams. So once your meeting is done, a recap is created, or a minutes report. Most people I work with, they never change it. It's fine as it is. So robot does the work, robot does the output, no one does anything. It's all fine. We trust that it's okay. So robot to robot in some ways. Drafting is a bit different. If I'm a project manager, I'm getting asked to do a mock-up of what would the project plan look like for this gigantic business case that we have in PowerPoint. Then it would be great if AI could suggest, or Copilot, the 80% draft of what a timeline could look like, just to save my time. I still have to finish it off, of course. And the final bucket in my context is decision-making, which is a bit more complicated. So here we already have perhaps a decision we have taken last week, or we're about to do, but we want AI to step in and run an analysis on whether or not what we're about to do is the smart move, which is not the easiest use case to start with AI. But these are sort of the typical categories that we work with. Then on a quick note here, Microsoft is very good in doing studies from their own data and telemetry annually. So 2024 report is what I'm about to talk and show you about, but 2023 was also there, 2022. So it's fairly easy to track the progression of AI and behaviors on a global scale, but by looking at data. And one thing that is interesting in this one is that when you ask management why they want to invest in AI, or why they're doing it already, it's not to let people go or reduce the workforce. Well, for some it could be, but for most it's a matter of improving the productivity. So it's like a double up. Ideally, if we can get the same people to do twice as much, it is a really good business case. Might be a stretch with twice as much, but why not aim for the stars? But then, of course, from here to here, there's also a lot of other things in between. But let's focus on the productivity part. The other aspect of the report, the same report, and the data you can find in it, is that if you look at LinkedIn, and why is that important? Well, that's because people update their CVs and they add their new skills, they add the courses they attended, the certificates, the badges, I guess, all those things. And if we zoom in on who have done most in the area of developing AI skills in 2024, project managers. So I was very happy, because that's my zone of comfort. Number 2, product managers, also very good. Program managers, perfect, that's also our scope. And then we have general management as a whole. There are also other roles here that are also adding new skills when it comes to AI. But I don't know exactly why it is that business consultants are on place 19. I would say they should be at the very top. There's a lot of time to be saved there, but maybe that is the problem, but that's another story. So zooming out of this one, again, it's also categorized into who is doing what. But going back to where we came from here, this was management, this was people acquiring new skills. And then we get to the actual individual. If you ask those people, what do you want to gain from having AI available for you? Number 1, just find stuff, because it's a mess. No matter what internet you might have, it's difficult. Number 2, summarize meetings and all that action item stuff, so the recaps. Good news, those two you get out of the box on a plate, works in a minute with Copilot, which is great. But those are the two sort of most important use cases covered there. Copilot out of the box also covers lots of other stuff. Of course it does. But in the context of, let's say, my world of project management, when we get to analytical work, admin tasks, creative work, planning your day or planning your month, it really depends on who the role is, what they expect it to do for them. If you are a line manager, you should track your resource bottlenecks and fix the problems. If you were a project manager, it would probably be prioritizing the tasks that are done or not done. So it's very different. So when we get to this area, this is where I would typically open up Copilot Studio and start exploring with that role or that individual, that team, what do you expect from those types of AI categories? And examples of this is below here. So find information, project documentation, if it's project management. Decisions or status or whatever reports you want can also be done. Analytical work could be tracking progress or doing your KPI updates. Creative work, brainstorming, solving the problem, adding risks, and so on. So ultimately, Copilot Studio is a Copilot agent that we can extend. And that agent can come in many variations, from the rather simple ones, left side, where you ask something, it has grounded itself into your data. So it answers from that data. How many projects do I have, and what's the cost overrun this year? And the answer is there. That's the basic one. We have something that can create things for you. So please help me create a new project based on the email I got yesterday. And then AI does the work. That's a bit more tricky, still easy, I think. And then all the way through to the autonomous one. The agent wakes up and behaves as a person when no one knows it's doing it. We track it, but we don't start it. So that's the autonomous one. And in a nutshell, there are so many slides explaining the goodness of Copilot. Some of them have lines all over, some are a little bit simpler, but most are, in my opinion, very tricky to fully grasp. So I sort of dumped it down to my world, which is we have an app in Microsoft, Power Platform, Dynamics, similar. Inside that app, there is a Copilot. It's been there for quite a while, but hasn't really done the job, unless it was Dynamics, but not in our Power Apps world. And we want to make this understand that one by controlling the conversation, loading it with specific prompts, flows, actions, website knowledge, my project documentation model, or whatever it could be. But I also want it to be available in Teams. And if we have the paid Copilot subscription already, it should also work with that. So, and there's a full yes, we can do all of this as it is today, which is great for us. So, which also means that all these different roles will get maybe their own agent. Maybe she has 4 agents. That person has 1. Someone else has 3. One will access it in Teams, 1 in Dynamics, 1 in Power Apps, 1 in Office, everywhere, or mobile for that matter. So zooming over to the demo part, we have exactly 24 minutes, so or more or less. So bear with me. I will go fast. Initially, we're going to start off in Teams. So in Teams, I have an agent on the left-hand side. Agents can be found from employees by just adding them down here. There's an agent catalog. You can also find it elsewhere. When I go in here and write, for instance, create a new project like this, that could be something we wanted to do. Could also speak it, by the way, if you were on the road. What is the name of the project? Microsoft DK demo. Come on. I'm just going to be nice and do this so it's easier to find in just a second. Then, what is a good description? So please comment a description, but a good one. Of course, here we could have had the chatbot explain what good looks like. But let's try to not know it and write, build a house that is amazing. Let's see how that works. Expected 3-year budget. It's a long development process, it seems. 3 years is a lot for a house, I guess. But let's say it's 150,000 euros. So it's rather cheap. Then the next question, what about the benefits? If you're going to lease it out, maybe it's double up. I don't know. Oops. So now already here, it will assess whether or not what I'm doing is okay according to standards. Not a template, but written standards. So in this case, it's rejected. The project description does not have a measurable goal. It also checks for language, length, tone, yada, yada, yada. So the first sort of police agent job a PMO manager would have today, it has now been moved over to the robot, right? Instead of saying, no, this is not good enough. So that's one way of saving time. Let's go back and just quickly write it again. So it sends me back to, if I want to rewrite it. So I'm going to write, build a new house in Denmark. Let's say here with capacity for 20 people. See, that's really OKRs for those who are into that. So we probably have to reload in. Let's take the budget again, 100,000. I'm going to be a bit more nice and write 400,000. And then we see now what happens. Most likely it's going to say it's fine because it's English. There's okay, yeah. So it's already beyond to next month. That's it. So project approved. Reason: the description has the right format, the right language, and the right blah blah blah. So I'm going to create it now. And this button that I clicked on, create project with proposed risks and stakeholders, could also have been 10 other options. Create it without risks. Create just the plan. Create just the whatever. So you sort of control what the user should be able to do. So now it has created a project. So now I click, and now I go to my business application, which is a Power App similar to Dynamics. Project created, data moved over. Great. We are into a stage gate model right now. Today is not a demo of project management, so I'm going to focus on the AI stuff, and then we have a booth if you want to see more out there. But let me just go like this. So you can see that we now have, the description was handed over, budget, benefits. Therefore, we have an ROI, start, end date, SharePoint site, all those things. So just ready for the project manager to do the work. But we also said yes to risks, and we also said yes to stakeholders. So if I click on risks here, there we go. I'm going to zoom out a bit. Now it has preloaded it with risks already, even before I have done anything. And these risks will be completely relevant to building a house. And down here you can see them as well. It has tried to assess them from a probability impact perspective. If I open them up, we could have also had Copilot go in and write in the details for mitigation, description, who to inform, how to inform them, maybe even do it for you if something happens. That was the risk part. We also have the stakeholders. Similar approach. Probably these will be relevant to building a house. Local government, regulators, sponsors, investors, team, suppliers, yada, yada, yada. If you need something more, then the great news, which is a fairly new thing also to us, is that we now have Copilot here as well. That has the context of what I'm looking at. So if I go in and say, add project risks, it knows where I am and how to do it. So it says, I can add more risks. Do you have other information besides the description I should take into consideration? We can write, make them related to electricity challenges. I don't know. Power supply. How many do you want? 10 is a good number. So again, description or whatever other field we wanted to use, plus what I just wrote. So defining the context, 10 risks, and add it to the grid in a few seconds. Hopefully. There we go. I have to refresh the page. That's a missing feature that's coming soon, I know. So I don't have to refresh. But anyways, we go back. So now we have more risks down here. There should be a lot about, where is it? We need something about electricity, right? Don't we? Supply chain disruption, weather conditions, power outage a little bit. But it's creating the risks. And the typical question I get when we get to here is that, can we have it also use risks that we have already today, or that we have as a source of reference for the last 10 years of projects we've done? And it's really easy to say yes to that. We just have to point to that risk library, and that will then be used as the knowledge, and not just my prompt. Of course, just a final note, you can not agree, so you can just move stuff around and re-rank everything if that's what you want. but you just get the draft. Now we go to the timeline. So next, typically, the challenge here is that we need to spin up a VBS structure. I have my old school template. I can start from scratch. I don't like either. So I start with AI. And here I can say, what should we do? Create a plan for a new construction project. It should start soon. Let's see what it says. And complete September 2025. Just going to ignore that. I could write based on Prince2, based on PMI, but the reason why I don't is that the prompt behind the scenes has to be instructed by one of you or whoever is the admin who tells AI that in this company we run it like this. Because otherwise all your people or employees have to be prompt experts. We don't want that to happen. So rather than all of them becoming experts, we fine-tune the prompt a little bit so it has the context already. So here it took my input and created a, sorry, it always happens when I'm running on this one. Come on, let's go back. So we have some phases, we have some tasks. Let's go up here. Seems like here we go. So tasks, milestones, phases, and if we move them back and forth, we can of course manipulate everything. We can add a person like me to a task. I could also have AI do that, by the way, based on availability. And if I do that, then we'll see in just a second that, let me just go down here and see if it's there. Yeah, so Peter now has 500 hours in this project in that month. And if I stretch it out, or is it this one? Sorry, I took the wrong one. Here we go. Then it spreads it. So basic planning stuff. But I can do it or AI could do it. That's a matter of the data quality you have in your company and not having your capacity in Excel. Because then you can forget about this part being done by AI. So now we've done a little bit of work. We have some financials. We have a financial grid. I haven't typed in a whole lot here. No need doing that. But just to show you that we have a place to put in and store the numbers. And AI does that for us. On the front page now, we can also rate it a little bit. Say this is very important. It belongs to a portfolio. There's a business driver for this one called growth. It's an OKR situation, which means it's a strategic part of our decisions. So we're going to link it to win 4 awards in 2025. I can do a lot of things, but it's basically fields. But why I'm showing this is because up here, which is also brand new, there can be a top-level prompt, summary prompt, always available. So every time a project manager logs in and opens up the project, you always see a status update without asking for it. So executive summary in this case, I can't zoom in more than this. But building a new house, recommendation is that there's currently not any KPI status, so Steerco should probably go in and look at it a little bit. Start time, end time, there's no progress at all. Budget, spend is 0, project is within budget, ROI is good, blah, blah, blah. Well, how this should look like is, of course, up to you. So in this case, the project director would define what all project managers should meet every time they open their project. This is also, as you can see, Copilot, but not as a chatbot, just making data or information available. Final thing here, this is all good news, right? So let's go here and say, create a SWOT analysis. Because sometimes people ask for that as well. I know I don't need to spell it correctly, but it's just an old habit. I have to. So it will take the data everywhere on this project, hopefully, and pull it in real time and provide a SWOT based on, again, what the company has defined as a great SWOT analysis. Strong benefits, ROI of 3. So as you can see, it's exactly what we just wrote in real time. I could also have dumped it into a Word document, a PowerPoint generation, so create my status report. There you go. Tons of scenarios for how you can use this. So still, this is a 15-minute demo, and we have a timeline, we have risks, we have stakeholders, we have a SWOT, imagine the time it would take normally to do this the manual way. Final note, when we start up something new here, it's one thing that we can use a chatbot, but let me show you something even faster. Let's go to ideas just for the fun of it. So I have an idea library. I can click new, and I'm met with, again, fields and inputs. So in this case, maybe I have an email or something else, or a Word document where someone wrote in, we need to do this, this, and that, because blah, 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 blah. So lots of stuff. It could be a long document. So I copy it, I go back, and I have this magic paste button, also AI. So I click on it. It takes what I had in my copy-paste function, and it tries to fill in everything automatically. So it captures the start, the end, description, the money, the benefits, whatever it can, stakeholders, risks. So you can just take that gigantic thread, conversation, or document and try to have AI do the math for you. And then you can just go through all of them and say, yeah, accept all suggestions, save, an idea established in like a second. So there are many ways to do this, but sometimes I like to show this because it gives you an idea on what is actually possible when it comes to this. And the same thing you can do everywhere else. Every time you want to try and copy-paste, just do it. So back to this one. We open up the DK demo again, and we try to move it to the next stage. So I have a description, which means I can move ahead. I have my business case where I can't move ahead until I have a sponsor. But let's just pretend I'm the sponsor as well. Then it's going to be easier. That brings us to the gate decision. And here I can submit something for approval. Every customer I work with have this need or requirement. Once this is done, someone will get an email or a notification in Teams. For the sake of the demo, I'm going to go down here. And you can see there's a lot of demos here waiting for us to approve. The new one is not in yet. It will come, don't worry. Here we go, Microsoft DK demo. So a gate approval is required, hasn't been done. I open it up as any manager. And good news on the right-hand side, we have also had Copilot go in and recommend whether or not I should approve it. So even if you completely ignore AI in the approval context and you want to trust people only to do this, which is how it is today, it's still great to know that every manager who approves money above a certain point is always shown what AI would do. And together with the decision, we also store what AI said you should do. Not to point at anyone, but just to say, were you aware of those 3 gigantic risks once you approved it? Or did you read it or not? So AI as an approval assistant in the decision-making process, again, back to the last 2 years of my life, everyone wants that if they can get it. And then, of course, here I can say, looks good. It's all approved today. Save. Which means that the project manager, just quickly going back to the project up here, will probably see within a few seconds that, I'm too fast, sorry. Has to go back and forth. Okay, we wait a few seconds more. There we go. So Peter approved it on this date, all looks good, so you can now progress to execute and start tracking your hours or managing your tasks, whatever you want. So from here, we move further up the chain to a portfolio level. So the portfolio manager has, again here, there's a place for portfolios, a real place. So it's not a report, just to be clear on that. Many companies I work for always start by defining a portfolio more like a report, where all projects are tagged with a portfolio name. And then that's portfolio management, which of course it's not. In my world, where you really want to do it better, portfolio management is management of the portfolio, not just reporting it. So I can create a container like I've done here, where I have tech portfolio 25. What is nice already, I go up here and let's just refresh it. And I can, of course, have a portfolio summary available to me as a portfolio manager every time. So that's good news. So already here I can see we have a cost limit of 3.5 that has been defined down here. That's the CapEx budget for this year. And right now we have 7 projects with a total sum of 6 million in budget. That's a problem. How can you fix it? Well, adjust the selection of them, reprioritize them, change the budget, and also be aware there are risks that probably should be looked at, which is mostly related to technology and change. So that's a good start for a portfolio manager to get that in 3 seconds. Again, imagine the time it would take to capture that information every day. Next thing you go to, in this case, roadmap. And this is just to show that we have also the option of showing well, all the projects, this is a simple example, but the DK project just showed up and it has not been selected. Therefore, it has no rank. What this line represents is the money side of things, the 3.5. So if I go up here and say, please optimize all of this based on benefits, it will tell me to do these projects that are all above the line. That's how much I can afford. So we are lucky that this one went in. And you can see the benefits are here. The new program, this ERP platform, which consists of 3 sub-projects, has a total budget of 4.5, 1.5, 1, 400,000. I can then move this one further up here or move this one down here, depending on what I want to do. Come on. Okay, I have to re-rank it, just a second. But the point is, you can manually rank things, or you can have the system do it for you, with or without, you could say, an AI score. So up here, I can base it on, again, an AI rank. In this case, AI would have gone in and on each of them calculated a score, and then you can sort those in one view. And how should the AI calculate the score? Well, that's up for you to define in a prompt. It's not rocket science, but someone has to define it. So what you see here is that if we take all of these, we have 3.1 of budget, and we've excluded the biggest one, which is the ERP platform. You could, of course, just say, to hell with it, let's do it. And then you are now at, let's just say, commit rank. Here, now we've sort of went beyond the budget, sorry, from 3.5 to 5 million right now. Therefore, there is a problem with your budget. But again, that's just a minor thing. You can move things back and forth if you wanted to. You could also click here and get what everyone would like here is to see what are the resource situation based on this commitment, the bottlenecks. And expand down here and then see, okay, Andreas is working on this one. What if it's by project? And then you see it like this. And notice that this one up here is an epic, so it's not just projects. It comes from different work items, and we can pull it in and aggregate it and manage it across the work types. That's why we call it xPM and not PPM, because it's not just the projects. Good. So just checking here. Yes, so on a final note, on this side, if I go to my left side and go up here, what we can also do is to have a welcome page that is also pulling from AI Builder prompts, so that when the user opens up the app, every time they get sort of a write-up of what you should be aware of, what's the status, what's happening in the context of your role. Whether or not that's relevant or not, it's up to you. Typically, it was static pages, but now it's a bit more dynamic. And then, of course, the reporting aspects, if we look at it down out here, yeah, I need to sign in, which is good, which means we can't all see everything. Yes. So this is Power BI, just to be clear. And it's Power BI embedded in the app. But of course, you could access the reports from outside the app. This one shows you, again, back to the context of why we're doing these systems at all, that we're spending our money in a certain way. So we have a budget for all these projects in the differentiation category of 25% here, which is balanced with what this should be. But there are also places where we are underspending, and in the mandatory bucket, we are overspending, improvement-wise as well. Down here, you can then see, this is more like percentages of count of projects versus strategy. And down here, you see the actual portfolio limits and whether or not we are over or underspending according to the portfolio manager budget. And right-hand side, we see a strategic overview. I can always zoom out. So all the projects, sort of impact, benefits, or probability, or whatever you want to look at. But again, combining what goes on in large programs, smaller projects, or even epics, or whatever it is that you want to track. And everywhere I can, of course, click and filter my way through to get information, which is great. And I could keep going and looking at typical KPIs that you want to see in a dashboard. So the usual project management funnel, what's the intake situation, the financial situation, always sorted by highest cost variance. That's the only thing we are hunting for. If we look at the timeline, of course, we have that. OKRs, execution of our strategy. We could have a map. I'm not going to use that right now, but you could, showing you where the projects are going on. Probably that's a bit too crazy, but it's always fun to just show that you can. But what I want to show here is actually this one. Because all the changes that are happening in the system, no matter what it is, can be captured. So it's great we have the old timer of the monthly status. That's great. So each month you get a new status of your project. But in a situation where we actually have AI doing maybe 50 reports a day per project, because every time you open up the app, there's a new status. We can use that information and allow you to then play your data, play what's happening. This is a very simplified example I'm showing right now in half years, so not per week, but the ability to look at data and play it as it has evolved over the time is super interesting. Not so much to analyze the past, but more to use that past pattern to better predict what's happening in the future. So if we snapshot all this data, we have a much better starting point for doing, I would say, the next level of AI, which is typically into the machine learning, fine-tuning your prediction models. But that requires data. And my key problem, which is why I'm ending my talk with this, is that often when I ask people, do you have some data I can use? I get a big yes. There's a lot of Danish companies I've worked with that does that. Then I get the data. And what it shows is everything about the projects at the point when they were done. I can't see what happened throughout the life cycle. And guess what? When projects are all done, they are all 100% completed. Most are green in KPI. Latest budget has been approved, of course, but I can't see the other ones. So there is no learning from that data whatsoever, unless we have the date stamps of changes throughout the entire life cycle. So please be aware of that, because otherwise the next part of the next agenda for AI will be very tricky. That sort of concludes my presentation. I know questions are for later, and I will be at the booth together with the team throughout the day. And I know there is a break now, right?
Correct.
Thank you. Keep this here in case someone wants to scan, beep, or whatever. Yeah.